The San Francisco 49ers win their ninth straight, an overtime win. Robbie Gould field goal through the uprights to not only give the 49ers the 2 seed, eliminate the Las Vegas Raiders in week 17 from playoff contention. Game balls, everything you need to know, our thoughts, initial reaction, rapid react time, 49ers Raiders right now.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker with you at BD Peacock at Eric_Crocker. Thanks for making us your first listen of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by Ultimate Football GM. Ultimate Football GM is an awesome football game. It is a fun simulation-style GM football game. To download the game, just visit ultimategm.com or look it up on the app stores. Our listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code LOCKEDON in the game store. How about a 2 seed, Croc? How about maybe even 1 seed within reach for the San Francisco 49ers in week 18 with the Eagles loss? Things getting very, very interesting, but for those of you staying up late night with us here for the live episode, Crocs at 1 a.m. Miami time, arriving in Miami after a delayed flight. He's got the shades on already. I don't know if the shades, Crocker, because you're in Miami, it's going to be bright out there on the beach. I think it's nighttime there. I think it's dark outside. Are you wearing shades because of how bright the San Francisco 49ers future is in the playoffs right now?
The future is extremely bright for the 49ers, and you're looking at it, seeing who wins, who loses. Minnesota Vikings, I think we've known that they're kind of fraud. They've somehow have a lot of wins, but they're not very impressive. They took a big-time L to the Green Bay Packers, who's coming on strong as of late. Niners definitely needed that. And then you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, 2 straight losses. Gardner Minshew can't get it, can't do it. And then Jalen Hurts, will he come back for the last game? If not, 49ers potentially can be the number 1 seed. Didn't think it was possible, but here we are.
Pretty awesome. It was a pretty fun game. And I think my number 1 takeaway from this game is that exactly what we talked about with Brock Purdy, kind of wanting to see some adversity. Didn't want the 49ers to play bad or lose or anything like that. But the 49ers needed Brock Purdy and the offense to carry the team to victory this week. The Raiders with Jarrett Stidham putting up 500 yards of offense. There was almost 1,000 total yards of offense in this football game. Definitely not something we predicted, but we got to see that adversity. We got to see the 49ers need Brock Purdy and the offense to lead them to victory, just outscore an opponent that was scoring a lot of points on them. And the 49ers were absolutely up to the challenge. It wasn't a perfect game by any means for Brock Purdy. There were some mistakes there. I want to talk a little bit more about that, a couple of throws, and get your thoughts on that. But overall, it was an interesting game, a game script we didn't expect to see. And Croc, I don't know if you have any apologies to make to the Stidham family, but I think that's something we did not expect to see against the 49ers defense too, right?
Stidham, he was out there, and we've talked about his mobility and what was there, and you said, hey, he can move a little bit. And we saw his ability to make plays with his legs when need be. But I think more importantly, it was his toughness. He hung in there. 49ers had 0 sacks. I think part of it was he was just going to stare down that gun barrel and take a shot while throwing the ball. And more times than not, he was accurate. Obviously, a bit him on that last throw where, Nick Bosa, and this is the part where I don't want to say sacks are overrated, but I don't think they tell the full story. 49ers didn't have a sack in this game, but Nick Bosa was constantly hitting Stidham. And on the very last play for the Raiders, bull rushed the left tackle right into the lap of the quarterback. He couldn't finish through his throw. Ball popped up in the air. Interception, impact play, even though he didn't get the sack. So it was very cool and exciting to see that, how that whole thing played out. But yeah, Stidham, he was good. He was good. Really good, actually. And I don't think it was, necessarily McDaniel just, scheming everything wide open for him. But he was hitting stuff, made throws, was hanging in there. It was really cool to see.
Question from Daniel in the chat. Did this have anything to do with the 49ers defense maybe not having a lot of film on Stidham?
I think there could be something to that. But I think more importantly, Stidham, he's been in the offense with Josh McDaniels for 4 years, right? His entire time with the New England Patriots. So I think that might be a more important nugget, than even more so than 49ers not having the film, just understanding what McDaniel wants, where maybe Carr still trying to grasp that and you're not getting those same results.
Yeah, it's funny because Stidham's been in McDaniel's offense a lot longer than Carr, and it looked like it in this game, even though he's not a player that ever started a game. And RD Ripley in the chat says, I stayed up to tell Peacock this is all his fault. He said, and I quote, "It would be nice to see Purdy play from behind." So yeah, I apologize if the Locked On 49ers reverse jinx might be jinx and reverse jinx might be in full effect, Croc, with me talking about Purdy needing to put the team on his back and the offense carry the defense. If that could happen playing from behind, and you talking about Stidham and the best way to, I forget exactly what the quote was from you, Croc, but it's funny. And a lot of listeners brought it up after the Friday episode. I think you said the way that you shut down the way to defend Devontae Adams is to start Jarrett Stidham as quarterback. But he looked pretty and look, and I think a lot of speaking of the Locked On 49ers jinx, a lot of what McDaniels did, I don't know if he listens to the podcast, but it was the thing we talked about. If there was a path for the Raiders to give the 49ers trouble, it was, okay, athletic quarterback, utilize that, extend some plays. And then once you do extend those plays, can you find maybe a broken coverage to exploit, or maybe, keep the sticks moving with your legs as a quarterback, throw some, throwing a lot of short, efficient, high percentage passes, although they were kind of throwing the ball down the field a little bit too. It helps to have Devontae Adams making some amazing catches, a couple of really good ones in this game. Do you think
the big questionable one too, though?
Do you think it should have been overturned?
I thought it should have been, looking at his hand, to me, but you had to piece it together, though. And maybe they didn't do it to the full extent of which I did, looking at it through the lens of 49ers and 49er fans, where it just looked like his left hand was off of the ball while it looked like the ball was on the ground. But I don't think there was a clear, definitive view that was like, you see the brown on the ground. It was like you see his glove. It feels like no, I know, I'm not stupid. I know the ball's on the ground, but I don't think there was any way to truly prove it.
It's like just because the ball hits the ground doesn't mean you don't have control either. And the ball didn't necessarily move when it hit the ground. So I credit Devontae Adams for, first of all, being able to corral it. And he grabbed it with his right arm, brought it in, and he had his left arm kind of under the ball, but to the side of it, not completely under. So when he fell on it, the ball touched the ground, but it also didn't move. So I just got to give him credit to make it look close enough that they couldn't overturn it once they called it a catch on the field. If they said no catch on the field, I bet it wouldn't have been overturned either, because I just don't think you could quite see what was going on there. But you got to give him credit on that play. And, I don't really have a problem with them not overturning it. And he's obviously a really good player, and he's so important to that offense. But Jarrett Stidham was much more impressive than I expected. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah. He was good. The ball, I thought the way the ball came out of his hand was really good. It had some nice zip on his throws. You talked about the mobility part of it. I mean, I thought that put a lot of pressure on the 49ers defensive line. If that was Derek Carr back there, I mean, how many sacks would the 49ers have had?
So here's the other thing about the pass rush plan. And this is what changes for the 49ers with a more athletic quarterback. And I think we saw that this week versus what we saw from Washington and the quarterbacks they have. And it's a lot different than Carr. And I think they would have given Carr a lot more problems, because watching Nick Bosa rush in this game was very different. You saw so many bull rushes, so many times where he wants to control the offensive lineman, have sight, and I think contain is a bigger part of the game plan when they're playing against a quarterback that can get out on the move a little bit. And I think you saw that. So that's why there were so many quarterback hits. Bosa was credited with 5 quarterback hits, including the very last play of the game, which sealed it for the 49ers. And that interception is not going to go on his stat sheet, but that was made by him. He wasn't doing a lot of that, where you go, you pressure the offensive tackle to the outside, then you come back underneath inside and swipe inside. Bosa wasn't doing a lot of that, and he gets a lot of his sacks that way because I think he had to keep contained. So I think part of it was pass rush plan was the reason there wasn't a big sack total, and I think just well executed offense by the Raiders, and clearly they were targeting Deommodore Lenoir and Talanoa Hufanga, trying to get some broken coverages, and it worked a couple times.
Yeah, it definitely did. And I got a lot of questions about Lenoir, and maybe we can get it to him and Hufanga in the second segment. Really talking more so about them, maybe the defense, right? Didn't have their best performance. Is this something that we could expect moving forward, or is this a one-off? So even against Washington Commanders, I'd say that the 49ers defense came through when they needed to, but giving up 20 points, that's more than what you average giving up per season, on the season. So are the 49ers figured out? I think that's what people are trying to figure out, right? The
Right.
fans and what they're kind of alluding to.
Two really big plays though with the interceptions. One with the ball that doinked off of Kerry Hyder and was intercepted by Drake Jackson, just fell into his hands. That was a gift. You could see him on the sideline. He's like, look, it was just in the air and I grabbed it. And then, of course, the Bosa play at the end really made it. Two huge plays by the defense in a game where they gave up 500 total yards of offense to the Raiders and Jarrett Stidham. Unbelievable. All right, let's get into that a little bit more. Croc's insight on the defensive backs will, of course, give out some game balls, and I think most of those are going to go to the offensive side of the ball for the San Francisco 49ers in Week 17 next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by our newest sponsor, Ultimate Football GM. Pretty geeked out about this one because it is a football game, and I know everybody listens to this loves football, and probably just about all of you guys at some point or still do play a lot of football games, and this one is fun because it is for all of you that ever dreamed of becoming an NFL GM, managing your football franchise. Your dream has come true now with Ultimate Football GM. Manage every strategic aspect of your team. Play through the season and lead your team to glory. Responsible for drafting players, hiring the right coaches and coordinators, trading players, navigating your franchise through free agency, the draft, all the ups and downs of a season. All this in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Football GM is completely free and playable offline. Play on the go and play as you want and when you want to. I'm in year 2 of my San Francisco franchise, and I've got a quarterback by the name of Roland Battle that is just phenomenal. He's no Brock Purdy, but he's pretty good, and I think I'm turning my franchise around. A little bit difficult to start with, too, with the roster you're given, much like Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch were in 2017. Locked On 49ers listeners can get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On in the game store. That's Locked On, all caps. One word, all caps, Locked On. Make sure you check it out today. Download the game. Just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the app or look it up on the app stores as well. That's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty today. Thanks again, everybody, for making Locked On 49ers your first listen every day. Subscribe to Locked On NFL Podcast and get daily conversations on the biggest NFL stories, plus in-depth analysis and the biggest games, key predictions every Friday. Of course, on the Locked On NFL channel, you can find the Peacock and Williamson NFL show, and make sure you're also dialed in this draft season. It's January. It is officially draft season with the college football season almost over. One more big game to go with the national championship. And then we got Senior Bowl, all kinds of stuff Croc will be covering daily on Locked On NFL Draft. All right, what do you make of the coverage stuff? Clearly, that's something that GMs and this isn't the first, or GMs, coaches, this isn't the first team to do it, but I think we really saw it here. And I think that's sort of a Bill Belichick thing, too, with Josh McDaniels. Bill Belichick's always known for, okay, on defense, we're going to take away whatever your best thing is, and then on offense, we're going to attack whatever your weakness is until you prove you can stop it. And I think that's kind of what the process was for Josh McDaniels in this game. And you look at the 49ers defense, and it's the best defense in the league. Where do you look? Like, I guess we got to go after Deommodore Lenoir, right? And I think they did heavily in this game, and I think they got Talanoa Hufanga a couple times, and not every time, but they tried to get him to be over-aggressive a couple times, and it worked.
Yeah, and there was also a couple of holding penalties on Travarius Ward as well that were sometimes away from the throw. Yeah. So he's kind of been a little extra grabby throughout this season. It kind of gets overlooked a little bit because he has played well. Outside of that, when you look at the other guys, Lenoir, especially Hufanga, man, you look at that touchdown Hufanga gave up early in the game, and I did have someone tweet me and say, "Can't wait to hear Croc explain how this is not a defensive back's fault." And I'm like, dude, that's not what I do. What I do is say I don't know exactly whose fault it is a lot of times, but it was clearly Hufanga's fault on that play, and I could see what happened. Now, listen, I'm just going to try to give you the insight from a defensive back perspective, right? And you're looking at Hufanga, he's down in the box, it's 3rd and 2. What are you thinking on 3rd and 2 against a team that has ran the ball at will early in the game? oh man, they're probably going to run some power or something like that. They do a run fake, and your eyes get caught in the backfield, and you let a guy like Darren Waller get behind you, and that's tough because what do you play more? Are you more aggressive versus the run, or are you like, nah, we're just going to let the run go and we're going to play the pass? So he was more aggressive versus the run, especially with his eyes, and let a guy get right behind him, and that's not ideal. And then you watch Diamador Lenore. He's targeted early and often in that game, gave up catches to Devontae Adams, who's really good. So I'm not going to knock him for that one. But the Foster Moreau one, and he's right there. Yeah. It's like, bro, make a play on the ball. You're right there. Now, Lenore's not the biggest of guys, and Moreau's a pretty big guy, but you got to be more aggressive at the catch point. And when you're not, the guys like that, they take the ball away from you. Now, there was one that he did make a good play on. It was the near interception that got batted around, 10 times. Looked like they were kind of playing hot potato back there. That was a good play by Lenore. That might get a little bit overlooked, but because that was a third down play as well. But yeah, he had a rough night. Now, how do I view Lenore? I don't view him as an equal to Emmanuel Moseley. So my expectations of him aren't as high. Yeah, he has to be out there, and he's playing on a really good defense, but he is what he is. So it's not like Josh Norman last year, and I think he's a little bit better than Josh Norman. I don't have high expectations for him when he steps out there on the field.
I do like the competitiveness sometimes from Lenore. And yeah, you could see his lack of length there on the Foster Moreau play, and I think on a couple of plays with Devontae Adams, and that one that we talked about earlier that we thought, maybe it could be overturned. And it's tough because the defense is so good that he's probably the weakest link out there. But I also don't have a problem with him either. He's a good player. He's not terrible, but it's just the offense has to find somewhere where they're going to go. And I think in this game, we really saw them attack Diamador Lenore, and the 49ers can expect to see that. So I wonder what else you do coverage wise to mask that or to make up for it. Do you have to sort of start to go more too high, more moving a safety over there? Jimmy, I wouldn't say put Jimmy Ward on the outside. There's Jackrabbit Jenkins. BSE says is a Jackrabbit time. I don't know about any of that. I think they're fine. They're just you're not going to have 11 All-Pros out there all the time.
Well, and Lenore was getting beat against Washington Commanders as well, vertically. And there was one time he kind of got bailed out by a penalty when he gave up a deep catch. I think it was Dotson that got him down the field. So, I guess your expectations for him can't be the same as if it were Emmanuel Moseley out there. And if you look at it through those lenses, then it's just like whatever happens, it kind of happens. And you hope that just people are good around him. And that's what I tend to lean on when watching the games. Like, Diamador Lenore, get him out of here. He stinks. Like, that's not really my reaction. It's just
right. Somewhere in between. Yeah. We do that a lot, Croc. What we end up doing is when people get too high, we try to give them a little dose of reality, bring them down a little bit out of the clouds. And when people are too low, we try to remind them what's really going on and where the 49ers are going and what they're going to be. So I think it's like that with Diamador Lenore after a game like this. I want to go to the offensive side of the ball, Croc. Matt says we definitely lose this game without Christian McCaffrey. I would say that McCaffrey was awesome in this game. I would say we definitely lose this game without the offensive line. 0 sacks for 0 yards. Again, we've seen that a couple times. McGlinchey doing a really good job with Max Crosby, and massive holes in the run game. So, look, running backs, I know, always get the credit, and McCaffrey's a great player, and it's awesome to have McCaffrey in the lineup, especially not having Debo in the lineup. I think that's been huge, but you got to give credit first. That's probably my first game balls. I got to give it to the offensive line. The offensive line is really good in this game. Yeah,
they were moving bodies early and often, and I was like, man, just keep running the ball up the middle. And Christian McCaffrey, part of that, thought he did a really good job with his vision. I think his patience in the run game is, oh, man, I mean, it is terrific. He truly understands how to run in this outside zone. And there's sometimes where I see him pressing the edge, and he's like pressing the edge, and then boom, puts his foot in the ground, gets north right down. I'm like, oh, man, that's beautiful. I get why. And I don't know if this is what he was doing in Carolina, and why Kyle said, you know what, it's going to work as much in the run game as it is in the passing game. I'd say this is the best version of him on the ground that we've seen, right? Because, if you look at last week, what was he averaging? Like barely 3 yards per carry. And even if you go back to the week before that, maybe the same thing. But this game, and maybe that has something to do with the Raiders. I think their run game, I don't think they're very good against a run, if I'm not mistaken.
It didn't look like it
So
in this game. Yeah,
right.
and the highlight run too. And I don't know who the DB was, but I don't know what that attempt was. Maybe he was like, it looked like he was maybe trying to punch the ball out, but he was head up with Christian McCaffrey coming right at him, and he kind of like threw his arm down and just got ran over. It was like, what are you doing, dude? He's gonna get killed in the meetings watching that replay. That was an awesome. That was an awesome highlight. McCaffrey.
He's gonna have that one guy make a video of him piss down the side of his leg. You know that guy.
But you can't do that. I don't know what that attempt was, but yeah, there were some big holes. I mean, Jordan Mason, he only had a couple carries, but he was 6.5 yards per carry. Congrats on two big congratulations for the running backs too. Congrats, Jordan Mason with his first trail in the chat here, reminding me. Jordan Mason with his first career touchdown. That was awesome to see. And congrats to Christian McCaffrey becoming the leader in receptions for a running back in the first 6 years of his career, surpassing one Roger Craig. So that's pretty cool. Game balls, Croc. We're in that section of the podcast now. Next, let's give out some game balls. I already gave one out to the offensive line. You can decide if who else needs to get a game ball here. But I have a feeling a lot of people on the offensive side are going to get a game ball. But first, I want to let the folks out there know about our great friends. I just had one today at Built Bar. Are you looking for a delicious treat, but don't want all the fat and calories? Well, then you got to try Built Bar. It is made for you. Built Bar is a protein bar that tastes unbelievable, better than a candy bar, in my opinion. We just got through the holidays, and I know my goal and a lot of people's goals. I started my goal early this year too. I started a few weeks ago, and I'm trying to get down, and I'm serious about it this time. I'm in a better place to be able to do it, and something like Built Bar can really help you when you want to treat. Get something that's high protein, low sugar, and low in calories. Everyone's trying to eat a little healthier this time of year as we hit January, right? So if you're like me and you're like a lot of people, you want to eat healthier but don't want to compromise taste, then we've got the thing for you. You got to try Built. With Built, healthy is actually tasty. Seriously, no, they're so delicious that you won't even think that they are good for you. They're perfect for your New Year's resolutions. What makes Built Bars so good? For starters, they're all covered in 100% real chocolate. That always helps. That's right, real chocolate, which makes you really feel like you're getting a treat. And then some unbelievable flavors like peanut butter, which is my favorite, peanut butter brownie, coconut, almond, churro, unbelievable flavors. And I don't know how they pack all the flavor in, but they do. And the amazing macros that go with it. Only 130 calories in most Built Bars, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. And they're not just online anymore. Of course, you can go to built.com and get a box of Built Bars, but you can also find them through your local Walmart or Sam's Club, as well as a few other places I've seen Built Bars on the shelves. So if you're close to a Sam's Club, run in Walmart, go inside, grab yourself a box, hit all the flavors, brownie batter and churro, and you can thank me later, or go to built.com. All right, Croc, it's game ball time. Christian McCaffrey gets a game ball. The offensive line gets a game ball.
Kyle Shanahan gets a game ball.
I was just thinking that. Should we just give it all the way down through all the coaches and all the players on the offense? Because the offense had to carry the team, and they did.
They did. And shout out to Kyle Shanahan. He drew up some timely screenplays where the passing game wasn't necessarily good at certain times in this game. And he said, you know what, Robert McLeod, we're going to throw a screen to you. And he got guys out in front of him. He's making guys miss. He strikes down the field. He had one reception in this game, 42 yards. It was off of a timely called screenplay. Christian McCaffrey, late in that game, what they do, dial up the screen, get it going down the field, a 38-yard gain. So, I mean, that's almost 100 yards right there in passing yards just off of 2 screenplays that I thought were really timely called. So, really kudos to him, understanding what he had to do with the run game. I thought that was really good. And continuing to make it to where Brock Purdy is in a good situation as well, to where I still never felt like everything was on him. And when it was time for him to make some throws, he did a really good job of that. But kudos to Kyle Shanahan.
It's not this easy, Croc, but if you're a defensive coordinator and you're playing against the 49ers, especially on this day, at what point you say, can you guys cover Brandon Aiyuk on the inbreakers. Or maybe you just can't because he's that good, because it was amazing. Play after play after play, they kept the ball rolling on what could have been a disastrous play. Brandon Aiyuk, one of the biggest plays of the game. In fact, Brandon Aiyuk going up to catch a ball out of Purdy's hands after he gets hit when he's throwing it. Brandon Aiyuk, I think, absolutely deserves a game ball in this one. I know he's targeted 12 times. I think he ended up with, 9 catches, right? 9 catches for 101 yards and a touchdown for Brandon Aiyuk. He was the focal point of the 49ers passing game.
Yeah, and that's exciting for me. I'm in the group chat with the Cowboy fans, and there's always the CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Aiyuk thing. And I'm like, dude, if Brandon Aiyuk got the targets Lamb got, who Lamb has like 50 more targets this year, like, dude, he'd be a 1,300-yard receiver. He just doesn't get that many targets. It's not that high volume of a passing attack by the 49ers. But in a game where now you have to throw the ball a little bit more than 22 times like the 49ers did against the Commanders, well, what happens? There's more targets for Brandon Aiyuk, and what do you know? He goes over 100 yards. I think he's always has that ability. I really think in any time he steps on the field, but he just doesn't get the opportunity. Finally, in this game, he did, and he came up huge.
Seen a lot of Brock Purdy in the chat, Croc. Is this a Brock Purdy game ball game?
Yeah, because he did what you were asking to see, right? We're talking about a situation that is a little bit less than ideal. I'd say most of the games that he's played in, really comfortable. I compare it to like watching the Golden State Warriors, and when they're playing ahead and they start shooting those threes, how much more confidence do they shoot those threes with? And they're just falling left and right. Boom, bomb, bomb. Curry throwing the ball in the air, turning around before it hits the ground or before it hits the net, right? And I felt like a lot of the games, that's Brock Purdy kind of playing with house money a little bit because the 49ers are so ahead. Well, this game was a little bit more pressure-packed. I thought he still continued to be up to the challenge. So definitely a game ball for Brock Purdy. Someone asked about his arm strength, though, and I know you had something on that.
Yeah, I do want to talk about that for a second, but I want to bring up BSE in the chat, brings up Brian Greasy. Says, Brian Greasy, game ball for calming down Purdy after he started to press and missed some layups. And there was some hiccups in this game from Brock Purdy, but just on the Brian Greasy thing, and we don't really know exactly what goes into being the on a day-to-day basis, being the quarterback coach, or how important it is, but just judging by what we've seen from Brock Purdy, seeing how good Garoppolo was playing this year as well, Brian Greasy's feeling more and more like potentially a home run hire for the 49ers. And John Lynch talked about this week how it was actually Brian Greasy and Clay. Is it Clay or Clint? I always get it mixed up. I think it's Clay Kubiak, right, with the 49ers, the youngest of the Kubiak sons. It was Greasy and Kubiak were really the ones that were the point men on Brock Purdy and really liked him and kind of talked everybody else into in the end they all agreed that they really wanted Brock Purdy, and they were talking to him as an undrafted free agent, ended up using the last pick in the draft on him. So Brian Greasy, a big part of why Brock Purdy's on the 49ers. And
how many games did Brian Greasy watch him in college while being on ESPN, right?
Yeah, being a broadcaster, that helped. And knowing the college game a little bit, but it seems like Brian Greasy's doing something right. So shout out to Brian Greasy.
It's the mental part of the game. And I think a lot of people, when you made the hire, what does this do for Trey Lance? And it's like, dude, the development from a mechanical standpoint, a lot of that stuff happens in the offseason. But the mental aspect of it, that's what position coaches are really there for, preparing guys mentally to be able to get on the field. The game is won from the shoulders up in the NFL. The athleticism is a little bit more equal for the most part, right? Some guys have a little bit more special than others. But getting guys to understand exactly what to do, maybe how to really translate what Kyle Shanahan wants onto the field, but maybe hearing it a different way from someone that actually played under Kyle and Mike. And I think that was the benefits of having a guy like Brian Greasy in there. So there were a lot of people that were like, I don't understand. I'm like, I clearly understand the hire. I always liked the hire just in the sense of what I thought they were trying to do with it.
And he must really want to do it because it would seem the broadcasting gig is a way cushier job than being an NFL quarterback coach, right? For the hours you put in and probably the pay as well. So Brian Greasy might be in it to win it. So this from Jesus. Purdy doesn't have arm strength in closing windows. This is something that I saw today. There was a couple of throws that hung up. There was the one where he's rolling left, tries to hit Kittle on the opposite side of the field. I just don't think that that club is in his bag. Like, I don't know if Purdy should be attempting that throw. That's the elite throwers can make that type of throw. And he was fading away from it too and making the throw, and the ball hangs up there. Then there was a play right after that. It might have been back-to-back throws where he hangs one up down the right sideline was it to Aiyuk on that one? Oh, no, it was Jennings. It was Jennings. And Jennings was able to get his hand on the ball, but clearly I think Brock Purdy wanted to put it out there a little more, and it wouldn't have even been a contested catch. So both of those plays, the offensive player had a chance to maybe go up and make a play on the ball, but they could have as equally been intercepted by the defender too, because they were just jump balls essentially. And both balls looked to me like they hung up there, and Purdy just didn't have enough on him. Is that something? Okay, like he was a 7th round pick for a reason. Are we seeing with some throws like that? Are we seeing a Purdy ceiling, even though he's done spin? Look, and this is not me. I tweeted about it during the game, and people were freaking out. It's like, no, I'm just saying on a couple throws you see it, and this is just it's all part of the evaluation. It's part of the scouting report. Is that ultimately the ceiling that would cap Brock Purdy because there's just some throws he can't make? And if it's the case, does it even matter? Now, I don't know if he was hurt. I know there's a time after one play he was moving his wrist around. Like, I wonder if maybe he was even hurt, and we'll find out if something comes up on the injury report from Brock Purdy. But you see a couple throws and you think, man, maybe in the end it's going to hold him back from being someone great, because he's doing a lot of great things for the 49ers right now.
I think that there's a reason why some guys go in the 1st round and other guys go in the 7th round. And for the most part, really with anything when it comes to football, it's understanding what your limitations are and knowing how to play around it, right? I was a guy who ran a 4.5, so I knew I had 4.55, right? Like close to a 4.6. So I knew I had to play receivers a certain way, right? Like, especially if somebody was faster than me, I had to okay, you understand your limitations and what you do, so you have to play it this certain way. Once you understand that, then you can have a little bit more success. I think when it comes to Brock Purdy, continue to do the things that you do well. And like you said, don't start to veer outside of that, because that's not your game. Now, when people wonder why guys are drafted as high, it's because, well, there isn't any throw that they can't make. Now, the consistency of it is a different thing. And how many times in a game will you need to make that throw? Now, and I always say, well, you don't need to make it until you need to make it. Now, I was watching Dak Prescott like a year or so ago, and he tried to make this one throw, and I'm like, yeah, you don't need a big arm until you need a big arm when you're trying to throw this laser in there, and you don't have that in your bag. But if he just does what he does well, I think he'll be more than fine. And I think we've seen the ability to make plays off script. He has this craftiness to him as well. I think there's so many things that he does well that, okay, the lack of arm strength, just don't try to do those type of things where you're going to be in trouble, and he'll be fine. But it is there. I know what you're saying. I mean, I saw it in the preseason. There was a throw, and I was like, oh, yeah. And it's like, well, he, got his body under him, got his feet under him, stepped into the throw, got his hips through, and it's still the ball didn't do maybe what he was expecting to do in the NFL when windows close tighter. So playing on script with timing and rhythm, I think he continues to do that. The arm strength won't be something that shows up as a negative.
It's just one of the things, it's part of the whole process, and one of the parts of the evaluation, part of the scouting report that muddies it up, as well as Purdy's playing when we have some of those offseason conversations. But the Purdy run is not over yet. And as Charlene puts it here in the chat, Purdy's cerebral is still elite and can't be taught. It's like, right, you can't teach 6'5", you can't teach cannon arms, but you can't teach some of the stuff that Purdy has right now, because you would love to package some of the things that Purdy has and put it in some of these guys that are 6'5" with cannon arms that just don't have whatever that it is. And Purdy absolutely seems to have it. It's really fun to watch. So,
really
yeah, we got to
get
out of here.
More and more encouraged every time I see him step on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. No doubt. Fun game. 49ers beat the Raiders in overtime, 37-34. The 49ers still have a shot at the 1 seed. They could still end up with the 3 seed. Right now, currently 2 seed heading into the final week of the NFL season. Thanks so much for everybody jumping in the chat, making Locked On 49ers your first listen every day. Check out Locked On NFL Draft. Check out the Peacock and Williamson NFL show. Croc and I back tomorrow right here. Locked On 49ers.